Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. President Buhari's war against corruption and insurgency, as well as his crusade to keep the economy competitive, took different turns and twists in the first 4 years of his administration. But there is a view in certain quarters that the country's mainstream media have within that time failed or deliberately decided, in some people's opinion, to slant its coverage to shore up or favor the government of the day. How true is this? We're now being joined by Director General Voice of Nigeria, Osita Okechukwu, who is also a card-carrying member of the All Progressives Congress, Nigeria's ruling party, to explore this subject and give us his own insights. Osita Okechukwu, you are welcome to the morning show. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to have you on the morning show.
Thank you.
Yes, quickly. What's your
I appreciate.
Yes, thank you very much. We should be the ones thanking you guys. Now, what's your assessment of the media coverage of President Buhari's administration, particularly by the independent media in Nigeria? Some people say that the media has been too nice to President Buhari, particularly in terms of the reporting of the war against corruption and also the challenge of insecurity in Nigeria. What do you think?
Personally, I do not think that the Nigerian media is different from media all over the world. What one could say is that the Nigerian media should be praised for advancing the cause of democracy, trying to also go deeper than a lot of people had thought they would do, and trying to criticize when it is necessary, and most of the time constructive criticisms of the government. And those who actually go beyond the premise, I do not as well blame them, because in all media organizations, every media has its own slant. All the media cannot be supportive of one government, because the core ingredient of democracy is diversity of opinion, and which makes us in government to look for consensus. Otherwise, if all the media are praising President Muhammadu Buhari, that would not be the interest of the growth of democracy in Nigeria. So I think the Nigerian media had done so well, and they have been up in arms in trying to look beyond the corridors in terms of the oversight function that made the media to be called the fourth estate of the realm. Where the executive fails, the media will point it out. Where the parliament fails, they will also do same. And where the judiciary fails, they will do so. In terms of the war against corruption, for me, it is a process. Like we say, democracy is not a revolution per se. All the gains made in advanced democracies of the world have been incremental. Even the fight of corruption cannot be holistic, because you do not get all the facts and evidence on one day. So as it turns out, for us, like in Voice of Nigeria, we are one of the beneficiaries of President Muhammadu Buhari's anti-graft war. Because since we came to Abuja in 1991, which is about 28, 29 years ago, we've been squatting in Radio House, owned by Radio Nigeria. But today we now have a virgin gold corporate headquarters, courtesy of President Muhammadu Buhari's anti-graft war. So for us, if it's not for the strident war against corruption, maybe the man that built that house could have been using it today as a private property.
You're referring
but today it's now owned by the Voice of Nigeria.
So you're referring to the building given to you by the federal government, given to the Voice of Nigeria by the federal government from the former Chief of Defense Staff, the late Alex Bade, that was confiscated as part of the...
Yes.
Yes, exactly. So we're talking now about one of the gains of the anti-corruption war that you are a personal beneficiary of, that you can vouch for the government that progress is being made. I want you to talk some more about that, because what has happened now with the state of insecurity of the country, anti-corruption really has been knocked off the front pages for a while. What we're focusing on now is the fact that Nigerian lives and property are in peril. The anti-corruption fight is no longer the main focus. Where you have gains like what you have mentioned, the properties belonging to Alex Bade have been put to better use for the benefit of Nigerians. You also have the president seeming to undermine his own war against corruption by appointing ministers with not too pristine records. What is your take on all of that? The contradictory messages?
I have to start by saying that if not for the unfortunate incident that happened in Taraba last week, a lot of Nigerians will not know that we have what we call an effective IRT team of the Nigerian police. That is intelligence response team that is capable, that you can liken to the American SEAL. And what impressed me, in spite of the fact that the officers were killed, which is regrettable and unfortunate, is the fact that those officers were not high-ranking officers. They mentioned a sergeant, 2 sergeants, and an inspector. And they told us that the mileage they have covered in the insecurity war, that they were part of those who were able to locate Vance, a notorious kidnapper, and they were part of the team as well that located the kidnappers of Margaret Chingeri, of Dara. And they were very, very swift in their action. And so if that incident did not happen, a lot of Nigerians could have thought that the government was kind of unconcerned, insensitive on the insecurity in the land. But that alone had shown that government cannot go out to the public and start telling the public all the energy, all the commitments, both in finance and in sweat and blood in this instance. I told them sometimes in Enugu when we were having a meeting that President Buhari is not working hard on insecurity. I said I also know in a meeting we attended, which I might not go full detail on what happened, where the NSA told us that they also tried to get a what they call the mission-critical communication, where all the agencies will be linked up to have a shared platform that will have early warning and early response, which is lacking at the moment. So the government is doing a lot in this security, and Mr. President, I know, is not happy that we are in the situation where we are, and second by second, he thinks on how best and consult around the country and what should be done. In his past 4 years, he committed more in terms of funds in equipping the Nigerian security agencies. He committed more in trying to upgrade and advance and even motivate their welfare more than the regimes of yore.
But then ironically,
so that is a fact, but it's not something that...
It's a bit worrying then that security seems to be getting worse, seeing as you're talking about him equipping the security agencies more, you're talking about him investing more funds into all of these issues, yet all we're seeing is more nationwide insecurity. So clearly something is wrong here in terms of structure. Clearly something is wrong here in terms of the so-called security architecture that this administration seems to pose, because we, the citizens, cannot see the results that you are speaking of. So is what we're saying here that the president or this administration is spending a certain amount of money on an issue that is only getting worse? So where is that money going then? Because clearly we cannot see the results.
And don't forget as well, as I said, that the gains are not noticed in one day. Today, if you procure helicopters or fighter jets, and you are fighting Boko Haram, for instance, or the drones to locate kidnappers, you might not have a visible effect in the next day. So, but what I'm saying is that I do not want to come here publicly to say all I know that the government is doing. All I can say is that, sincerely, the present administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is doing all to contain as much as it can the insecurity in the land. And the investment they have made is verifiable, can be validly cross-checked, and he doesn't belong to the camp of those who are awarded a $470 million contract, and today there is no visible signs of where the $470 million, which for those who do well in arithmetic, if you multiply what 400, how much it is in Naira, it runs into billions, $470 million. So the efforts President Muhammadu Buhari is making need to be appreciated and also supported, because in areas where he's going deep, it's areas that concern the poor masses of the country. He's trying to breed inequality, because it's the inequality that gave rise to the insecurity in the country, where the very few are very rich and the majority are very poor. That's why he decided to undertake an agrarian revolution, where he told the government agencies, especially the Central Bank of Nigeria, to deepen into the reserves of the country, to get people back to land. And I think he should be supported. And when he's doing so, he also knows that one of the handicaps of the agrarian revolution is the insecurity in the land that is chasing some of the farmers out of farmlands. So he has feedback mechanism where he's told that the gains we could have made today in the agriculture is being hampered by herdsmen and other marauders who are making it impossible for the farmers to be fully engaged.
Well, Osita, we need to go on a short break, and then we'll come back to you. But before we return, let me leave you quickly with a question. I mean, you are DG of the Voice of Nigeria. You are also, I believe, part of the president's communication team. This administration has complained endlessly about the social media and how the social media has not been supportive of the government. Do you think that the social media is necessarily a good vehicle or a problem to the political leadership in Nigeria? We'll take a short break, and then when we come back, you can respond to that. Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Still with us is Osita Okechukwu, Director General of Voice of Nigeria and a member of the All Progressives Congress, Nigeria's ruling party. Osita Okechukwu, before we went on break, I was asking you a question about the social media. Given the fact that there is this constant tension between persons who engage the Nigerian government on social media and then spokespersons of government and even the Ministry of Information. Is it that, Nigerians on social media are necessarily just too censorious, or is the government itself that has not been able to work out a very, fruitful, useful, efficient, strategy for social media engagement and public communication?
Let me start by saying that the social media had come to stay. Whether anybody likes the social media or whether anybody hates the social media, the only differential between the mainstream media and the social media is that social media has no gatekeeper. Anybody can push out anything from any angle. But the good luck is that those who read the social media, they also read the mainstream. And time as well, sometimes, and most of the time, clarifies whether what you found in the social media, whether it is real or whether it's fake news. It's likened to the experience my father had. My father was a bicycle repairer. And sometimes in the 50s, there's a young boy that comes by on holidays. Little did my father know the boy was studying mechanical engineering. And the young man advised my father that instead of repairing the bicycle, he should try to go and learn how to repair motor vehicles. And my father said then there were less than 10 vehicles in the whole of the eastern region. And the ownership of the bicycles was in thousands. So my father could not reconcile why he should abandon the repair of bicycles to go for motor vehicles. And he didn't do that until the late 70s. And there was little or no bicycle around the environment. And my father was lacking jobs. And my father remembered the advice he was given in the 50s. So for us, the social media had come. Anybody who is in government, if you are managing the affairs of the government, keep to the rules. If you keep to the rules, when the fake news comes from the social media, don't bother yourself about that. Because the mainstream media will write the accurate news. And the people themselves have come to reason that they do not take all that that they see in the social media or read in the social media. The people are now very skeptical about the social media. So I do not think the federal government of Nigeria is worried about the social media or sees the social media as an enemy. No. Mr. President, for instance, knows that Nigeria belongs to the 10 most populous countries of the world, and 3 out of the 10 most populous countries of the world have the advantage of youth. And we are one of those that where 70–60% of Nigerian population are youths. And unluckily, those youths, most of them are idle. So what Mr. President is trying to do is to engage the youths, and that's why he said agriculture remains the open basket where more people could be employed without going to government agencies. Because the government agencies cannot employ more than 10%. That's why recently, or yesterday, he told the CBN governor, please, don't open for our forex to those who import food items. Let's go back to land.
Which contradicts the CBN Act, sir. It contradicts the CBN Act. But I wanted to ask you, sir, you used the word revolution twice before we went on the break. So within 15 minutes, you had used that word twice, demonstrating the different meanings that quite innocuous word can have. I want to now take you to the Revolution Now protests, which did not take hold at all in the Southeast states. And you made a comment of that. You're one of the people who made that observation. Why was this? And what is the agenda that the Southeast zone is pursuing now and into 2023?
No, actually, when we held a meeting in Enugu for last 2 weeks, after the revolution by my friend Showore, and I asked them why they did not participate. They said they are waiting for 2023 because of the zoning convention that started in 1999, and that out of the 3 geopolitical zones in the southern belt, that is only the southeast region, geopolitical zone, that had not presided over the country. So they are thinking and expecting sincerely that by 2023, when President Buhari must have finished and the power is rotating back to the south, that naturally it will be the turn of the southeast region. So they said they can't go on the streets to protest. That all they wait for is that there is a cyclic election in the country that goes on 4 years basis, and it's better to wait for those 4 years to come. And that date is 2023. That instead of disrupting what President Buhari is doing, the best one could do is to support him and engage in the policies that are tangible that he has, like, as I talked of the agrarian revolution, whereby now a lot of people are now going into palm produce, some are into cassava, some are going into poultry, piggery, and others. And they are getting government support, which wasn't the case in the past. That's why I call it a revolution.
But do you think that that's enough? Do you think it's enough to ask youths to engage in policies? I'm saying this because I feel as though a lot of citizens are starting to think that this administration likes to make a lot of things very black and white. It's one thing to try and push youths into a sector that the government is trying to grow. It's another thing to understand what is causing these large problems at hand. Nigeria has the largest number of people living in extreme poverty today, and that statistic came to life under this administration. So it's not enough just to assume that we can push in policies that are going to work for youths, because it's not going to do enough given the figures that we have. Now, this president is saying that he wants to lift 10 million people out of poverty every year over a 10-year period. So 4 years in his time that's left. That's 40 million people. Do you think we have the policies to really lift 40 million people out of poverty by 2023? I'm saying this because he gave examples from his social investment scheme, such as trader money, such as a school feeding program. Do you think that this administration is doing enough?
I think so, because I have known fully that the cotton that we forgot in the past, that was abandoned a few years ago, today the cotton farmers are back with federal government support. So is the palm produce farmers, so is the cocoa farmers, so is soya beans, and other aspects of agriculture. It's unprecedented, the kind of funds the federal government is throwing in. All we are saying is that the Nigerian people, whether you were a farmer before, instead of loitering in the urban center, please get back to land. And we're also pleading that the federal government should intensify the efforts to get the farmers access to the land by making sure that the herdsmen are not pushing the farmers out of the land. And I'm happy that the National Economic Council have reached a decision on what they call the National Livestock Plan, whereby the herdsmen will get back to what is done all over the world, whether it's called ranches, whatever the name, but we'll need them to be consigned to giving farms so that they do not intrude in other farmers' activities.
Well,
and that is what the federal government is thinking about.
Osita Okechukwu, we have just about 2 minutes to go. But I would like to ask you a question which I think you can deal with in less than 2 minutes, which is, what are the specific challenges you face as the Director General of a unit that is an external propaganda unit of the Nigerian government? And I see you most of the time almost usurping the functions of, internal spokespersons, the government spokespersons. And you are so deeply involved in politics. Sometimes I wonder how you cope running the Voice of Nigeria.
Voice of Nigeria, luckily for me, 3 years ago when I resumed, I met capable hands, professionals who are very dedicated. What they lacked was the fact that we are dependent on diesel. And it was gulping a lot of the funds coming to Voice of Nigeria, because we are not allowed by law to do any advertisement. So we do not generate any funds on our own. We depend entirely on the government. But I now raised a memo that we needed to have solar. And today, we're now generating about 400 kilowatts from solar for our transmitting station. And we have also upgraded our web platform. We are now in www.von.gov.ng.
Osita Okechukwu, unfortunately, we don't have much time anymore. Maybe some other day we'll focus strictly on the Voice of Nigeria and see how you're managing that. We want to thank you very much for coming to the morning show.